Celebrity Housewives of Los Angeles, a look around the Western Conference. It's opening day and why the Jazz are better. It's all coming up next on Tip Off. Boom, 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 whap. Big sponsor headline. Da-da-da-da. Okay, that's our cool production. Hope you're well. We are in Boston after a nice day yesterday. I hope everybody had a good one. A day away from a game, a rarity. I actually had a very fortunate day of all strange things. Two of my closest friends from Seattle live in the same small town, a shipping town about 30 minutes outside of Boston. I took a little boat over to them and spent a bunch of time with each family, saw their kids, and just had a wonderful day yesterday. So I hope everybody else did as well. It's kind of a gray, almost rainy, cold day in Boston this morning. The team heading to shoot around here in just a few moments to get ready for a game against the Boston Celtics, and we'll talk about the Celtics here in just a minute. But the big story in the NBA today is yet another benching and more drama out of Los Angeles. Last night, Andrew Bynum jacked a three, got taken out of the game, then came back in, seemed rather disinterested, and got benched. After the game, when he didn't participate in any of the huddles, he just stayed on the bench. He was asked about that. He said, "Why is everyone acting?" Oh, no, that's a Kobe quote. He said, "He took me out of the game, so I stayed. I stayed where he put me." The other one, when asked about the three, "I'm going to take another one, and I'm going to take some more." He never talks about making any of them, just that Andrew Bynum is going to become a three-point shooter. Kobe had the quote of the day: "Why is everyone acting like we're in eighth place? You guys were kissing the Clippers' ass at the start of the season, and now we are in the third seed, and everyone's acting like we suck." So, but fun, exciting times every day in LA, seemingly right now. Elsewhere, some things are pretty interesting. Houston and Phoenix both lost last night. Phoenix plays a tough stretch of games coming up here, 8 of their next 10 on the road. And we'll see how they react. Houston goes to 5-5 without Kyle Lowry, who they may lose for the rest of the season. So both those teams behind the Jazz lose. You know, it's actually interesting. The top 7 teams in the West have won their last game. The bottom 7 teams have lost their last game. And the quiet team around the Western Conference that nobody's talking about, because that's what nobody does, is while the Celebrity Housewives of Los Angeles are having their little shenanigans, the Spurs have simply won 8 of 9 and 12 of 14 overall. Let's turn to the Jazz here for a second, then I'll try to hit some tip-off questions as you tuned to tip-off this morning. Thanks so much, by the way. Chance for a vocal today. Chance I might drop some a podcast on you as well. So we'll see which those are. If you had your choice of a Harpering, Boone, Bowler Jack podcast today, any preference? Let me know. The other one would have been, so we'll see. I was trying to figure out why this team is so much better than anticipated, and so much better than they were a year ago. I mean, what's really kind of crazy here is if you go to the pre-Darren trade, this team's actually better than they were before the Darren trade. The team before the Darren trade, from the end of December to February Darren trade, had really collapsed already, and then the collapse was insignificant, somewhat insane from February to the end of the year. I think people missed that. I would say generally most of our fan base missed how truly terrible we were at the end of last season, which is fine. I unfortunately ran the numbers and was aware of it, and thus part of the reason why I felt without Karolinko that this team was going to really struggle this year. I mean, 22 wins was kind of my expectation, and obviously we've exceeded that. So where did I miss, and where are the Jazz better than they were a year ago? Al Jefferson, I think, is really the primary person. As much as a lot of things we still ask out of Al and desire out of Al more than what we've been receiving, I think the primary reason the Jazz are better is how much better Al is. In a year, his offensive numbers don't look better, but I actually think in realm of where the league is this year, where the offense is down, he is better. Defensively, he's made a far bigger effort. He's in a lot better shape than he was a year ago. Uh, he's able to move better than he was a year ago. Defensively, the team is not as obviously better when Favors is on the floor, and Al still makes some mistakes, but it's not dramatic. A year ago, it was dramatic, and then the next part of that probably gets to big man depth. That a year ago, the big man depth was Karolinko if he was healthy as an undersized four, Francisco Elson, and Kirill Fasenko. And this year, your big man depth is Derek Favors and Enes Kanter. And that's an enormous difference. Improved Jefferson. Millsap's probably about the same. At times been better, at times been worse. So overall, I would say about the same. And he's just tough as all get out. That you're a good deal better in that regard than you were a year ago. Your big man depth is better. Your overall depth is pretty largely improved. And you know, no, I think it's not. Raja left the lineup, and you lost some inefficiencies in Josh Howard, and the team actually has played a little bit better. You have less, from my numbers standpoint, you have less inefficient scores. Another Al, who was an inefficient scorer, has gotten closer to the league average. Favors is above the league average instead of Elson, who's below. Josh Howard was below the league average. CJ's playing a little less, who's below the league average. So you have more depth in that regard also. Hayward has improved considerably from a year ago and is getting the time that somebody else got. Burks' depth is better. And then the final one actually is the third point guard's a good deal better. In Jamal Tinsley over Ronnie Price. So those are roster-wise where I think the Jazz are a good deal better than a year ago. They are playing harder than they did a year ago. They are playing harder night in and night out. Now, they may I still think the 4 overtime game is coupled with the fact that it was the first of 6 games in 9 nights in 6 different cities is going to grab them at some point. Simple things from just, my life. I look at Thursday is the only day that we're home. That's tomorrow, where we get in 2 or 3 in the morning tonight. And Thursday is the only day we are home till next Tuesday. We're home Friday, but we play. My kids may not have to go to school on Thursday. I may get to play with them instead. So it's, we'll see. I just think at some point that's going to catch up with us. But for the most part, I really feel as though this team has played very, very hard all year. If you look universally across the board on every team in the NBA, they this year, on a regular 82-game schedule, you have 4 or 5 games in which you lose where you just scratch your head and say, what? How is that possible? You look this year, some of the best teams have 5 already in a 66-game schedule. Oklahoma City's got a bunch of them. Chicago's got a few that you just scratch your head and say, how'd they lose that? And they play probably harder than anyone in the league. This year has just worn people out. We have won, maybe double overtime to Toronto, but you know what? Double overtime to me means you're in the game. New Orleans, we just laid an egg. So I would say that I think they just play harder. And the final one that we talked about a lot early in the year, and we haven't talked about as much later, and maybe I need to write something up about this, was an improved defensive scheme. And I talked about this a lot early in the year with something called expected field goal percentage. And if I may remind you what that is, expected field goal percentage is a statistical way of looking at whether your defense is fundamentally working. And the concept is that you're forcing people to take shots from the spots on the floor you want them to. And, not to bore you too much, this is much better if it's in print, but if you look at just where shots are on the rim or on the floor, teams average, if they're shooting at the rim, teams average about 1.3 points per shot. If they're shooting anywhere between 3 and 23 feet, they're averaging about 0.7 points. And if they shoot a 3, they average about 1.04. I think that's right. Yeah. So about 1 point per 1 point possession on 3, 1.2 3 points per possession at the rim, and 0.7. It's a pretty big difference. So if you just take where the Jazz are allowing shots, the Jazz are much better than they were a year ago defensively. It hasn't shown up in some of the statistical metrics, but a year ago, the Jazz in expected field goal percentage, opponents' expected field goal percentage. A year ago, the Jazz were 12th in the NBA, and defended it pretty well. In 09-10, the Jazz were the 5th worst in the NBA at expected field goal percentage. In other words, teams were shooting 39% of their shots against the Jazz. Actually, that's not exactly right. Teams were shooting 33% of their shots at the rim, which was right around the league average. But they were shooting a huge percentage of those shots, 6th highest percentage of shots from 3 of any team in the league. And in turn, the Jazz had the 7th worst expected field goal percentage. This year, the Jazz are the exact opposite defensively. The Jazz are overall offensive expected, where teams should be, the Jazz are actually the 5th best or 6th best in the NBA. The problem is the Jazz haven't actually defended all these shots as well as they should, but they're one of the better teams in the league. The league average is 30 this year, is a little down. It's 30% of the shots at the rim. The Jazz only allow 28% of the shots at the rim. The three-pointers, opponents are on average shooting about 22.5% of shots at 3. That's exactly where the Jazz are, league average. So the Jazz have done a really nice job, and what the Jazz have done is they've protected the rim and forced people to shoot the 3 to 9 footer rather than getting to the rim much more than they have in years past. And it's helping them. They're still fouling too much. There's still some things that they have to do a good deal better. But those are the things that are making the Jazz a better team this year than they have been, I think, last year, and why they've probably exceeded a good deal of expectations. Should I have all sorts of spelling and grammatical errors. But should I ever read a tweet that spells a player's name wrong? I'm just wondering. Just wondering. Just checking on. Oh, by the way, for those of you offended by yesterday's jump in the lake comment, lighten up, Francis. Holy smokes. Someone tweeted me that's chicken S. Seriously, lighten up, Francis. I'm trying to see if there's. I actually did not get much new Locke tip-off. A lot of questions coming back about Millsap playing the 3. The reason Millsap doesn't play the 3 is he's not a 3. Some other questions about what our starting lineup will be in Game 66. I think it'll be exactly what you're seeing right now. I don't see a lot of rotation things changing between now and the rest of the season. I think this is who we are pending injury. We just got to make sure guys stay healthy. All right, that wraps up Locke Tip-Off. Hope you're good. A little 14-minute snippet. I'll see if I can bang out a podcast with someone. Bowler Jack, Harpering, any of the assistant coaches you'd really want to hear from, let me know, and I'll see if there's a possibility. I'll try to arrange something. Thank you. Talk to you later.